March 24, 1945, 30,000 feet above Berlin, Captain Roscoe Brown looked through the canopy of his P-51 Mustang and counted bombers, 60 B-17s in his assigned formation, every one of them filled with 10 young men who wanted to go home alive. Behind him, 15 more Mustangs with red tails, his squadron, the men everyone said couldn't fly. Below, the most heavily defended city in Nazi Germany, 8,000 anti-aircraft guns, and somewhere in those clouds, Luftwaffe jet fighters, the Me-262, the fastest combat aircraft in the world. No Allied fighter could catch them in level flight. The jets had been slaughtering bomber formations for weeks, diving through escorts, ripping apart B-17s with 30mm cannons, then disappearing before anyone could respond. But today, something was different. Today, the red tails were here. Brown's radio crackled. Bandits, 2 o'clock high, 3 jets inbound. 3 Me-262s diving toward the bombers at 600 miles per hour. Brown didn't hesitate, pushed his throttle forward, dove to intercept. His wingmen followed. They couldn't outrun the jets, but they could position themselves in the flight path, force the German pilots to maneuver. And when a jet turns, it bleeds speed. That's when a Mustang has a chance. The lead Me-262 opened fire on a B-17. 30mm shells tore through the bomber's wing. The fortress staggered, but held formation. Brown waited, watched the jet pull up after its attack run, predicted the turn, led his target, fired. 50 caliber rounds walked across the Me-262's fuselage. The jet's port engine exploded. Smoke trail. The pilot ejected. First Me-262 kill for the Tuskegee Airmen. And it happened over Berlin, in the most important mission of the war. Before we dive into how these men got here, I need you to do something. Smash that like button right now. This story almost got erased from history. The only reason we know it today is because people refuse to let it be forgotten. Your like helps make sure this story reaches more people. Hit it now. And subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. We share untold World War II stories that deserve to be remembered. Real heroes, real courage, real history. Don't miss them. Now let me take you back to where this really started. Not in combat, in a lie. United States War Department, a study was published. Title: The Use of Negro Manpower in War. Conclusion: the Negro is by nature subservient and lacks the initiative and resourcefulness of the white man. His mental inferiority makes him unsuitable for positions requiring independent thought and quick decisions. Specifically, the Negro is unsuitable for aviation duty. This wasn't a fringe opinion. This was official United States military policy, based on scientific studies, approved by generals, taught at military academies. And it determined that Black Americans could serve in the Army, but only in support roles: cooks, laborers, stevedores, segregated units under white officers, never in combat, never in positions of responsibility, and absolutely never as pilots. Because everyone knew Black men couldn't fly. Everyone knew it, except the Black men who were already flying. By 1940, there were over 100 licensed Black pilots in America, flying civilian aircraft, running flight schools, competing in air races. Men like Cornelius Coffey and Willa Brown, who operated aviation schools in Chicago. Charles Alfred Anderson, who'd logged thousands of flight hours. Chauncey Spencer, who'd flown from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to lobby Congress for aviation opportunities. These men weren't asking for permission to fly. They were already flying. And they were proving every day that the War Department study was garbage. But when war came in 1941, the Army Air Corps had a problem. They needed pilots, thousands of them. And there was public pressure. Black newspapers were demanding that African Americans be allowed to serve as pilots. Eleanor Roosevelt herself had taken a flight with black pilot Charles Anderson and publicly stated that black men could clearly fly. The military was cornered. They needed a way out. So they created an experiment. If we have to train black pilots, let's set them up to fail. Build a training facility in Alabama, the most segregated state in America. Staff it with white instructors who don't want to be there. Make the standards higher than regular flight training. And when these pilots wash out, we'll have proof that the original study was correct. They chose Tuskegee Institute, a black college in Tuskegee, Alabama, built a flight training facility, designated it the 99th Pursuit Squadron, and waited for failure. Instead, they got excellence. The first class began training in July 1941. 13 cadets. 5 graduated in March 1942. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. was the first, the son of the Army's first black general, a West Point graduate who'd spent 4 years being ignored by white cadets. Davis understood what was at stake. This wasn't just flight training. This was a test. Fail, and you prove the racists right. Succeed, and maybe, just maybe, you open doors for everyone who comes after. The training was brutal, not just physically, psychologically. White instructors looking for any excuse to wash out a cadet. Standards that exceeded regular flight training. Facilities that were inferior to white training bases. And constant reminders that you didn't belong. One instructor told a cadet, "I'll pass you if you're good enough, but I'm going to make damn sure you're twice as good as any white pilot before you get wings." That became the unspoken standard. Be twice as good. Make 0 mistakes. Because one failure confirms their prejudice. One crash proves you don't belong. So don't crash. Don't fail. Be perfect every single day. The pressure broke some men, but it forged others into something extraordinary. By the end of 1942, the 99th Pursuit Squadron had 47 pilots, ready for combat. The Army Air Corps couldn't delay any longer. In April 1943, the 99th shipped out to North Africa. First black fighter squadron in American military history. If this story is hitting you the same way it hit me, drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if you've heard this story before. Tell us what other forgotten heroes we should cover. Your comments help this channel grow. They help these stories reach more people. Don't just watch, engage. Be part of keeping this history alive. June 2nd, 1943, Tunisia. The 99th flew its first combat mission, escorting bombers attacking Pantelleria Island. Nothing happened. No enemy fighters, no anti-aircraft fire, just routine patrol. The white bomber crews had mixed feelings. On one hand, they didn't trust black pilots. On the other hand, any escort was better than no escort. Over the next 6 weeks, the 99th flew dozens of missions, shot down a few German aircraft, lost a few pilots, performed adequately. But that was the problem. Adequately wasn't good enough. They needed to be exceptional. Because in September 1943, a report was submitted to Army Air Corps headquarters. Written by Colonel William Mollmeyer, commander of the 33rd Fighter Group under which the 99th served. His conclusion? The Negro type has not the proper reflexes to make a first-class fighter pilot. Mollmeyer recommended disbanding the 99th and using its pilots as transport and cargo crews. The report almost ended the experiment, but Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. fought back. He returned to Washington, testified before the War Department Committee on Negro Troop Policies, brought mission reports, kill statistics, performance data. He argued that Mollmeyer's report was based on 6 weeks of observation, that the 99th had been given inferior aircraft and missions, that white squadrons with similar records weren't being disbanded. Davis was brilliant, calm, factual. He didn't argue against racism directly. He argued with statistics. And the statistics were undeniable. The 99th's performance matched white squadrons with equivalent experience and equipment. The recommendation to disband was rejected. More than that, the Army decided to expand, form a fighter group.
4 squadrons, over 100 pilots. The 332nd Fighter Group was born, and Benjamin O. Davis Jr. was given command. January 1944, the 332nd Fighter Group arrived in Italy. 4 squadrons, the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd, flying P-47 Thunderbolts initially, then P-51 Mustangs, and they painted their tails red. Bright red, distinctive, visible from miles away. Some said it was for easy identification. Others said it was pride, a statement. We're here, we're black, and we're the best fighters you'll ever see. The bomber crews called them the Red Tails, and at first they requested other escorts, because racism doesn't disappear just because you wear a uniform. White crews didn't want black pilots protecting them. Until they flew with them, because something started happening that nobody expected. Bombers escorted by the Red Tails came back. Here's a statistic that shut down every racist argument. The 332nd Fighter Group flew 179 bomber escort missions, 179 missions deep into Germany, into the most heavily defended airspace in human history, escorting slow, vulnerable bombers against the best fighter pilots in the Luftwaffe. And in 179 missions, they never lost a bomber to enemy fighters. Never. Not one. Let me repeat that because it's important. Other escort groups lost bombers. Good groups, experienced groups, white groups with excellent records. They all lost bombers. Because bomber escort is nearly impossible. You're protecting dozens of slow targets against fast, aggressive fighters. The math doesn't work. Except the Red Tails made it work. How? By refusing to chase kills. Most fighter pilots wanted victories, ace status, 5 kills, and you're famous. So when enemy fighters appeared, escorts would chase them, dive after them, try to shoot them down. That's when other German fighters would slip past and attack the bombers. It's called a bait tactic. Draw the escorts away, then hit the real targets. The Red Tails didn't fall for it. Davis drilled one principle into his pilots: stay with the bombers. Enemy fighter appears, stay with the bombers. Opportunity for an easy kill, stay with the bombers. Luftwaffe ace trying to draw you away, stay with the bombers. Your job isn't glory. Your job is protecting those men. Every bomber that goes home is a victory. Every crew that survives is a win. The Red Tails weren't there to be heroes. They were there to bring people home. And they did it better than anyone else in the 8th Air Force. Word spread fast. Bomber crews started requesting the Red Tails, specifically, by name. White crews, who a year earlier didn't want black pilots anywhere near them, were now demanding them as escorts. Because when you're 30,000 feet over Germany, with flak bursting around you and Luftwaffe fighters diving, you don't care about skin color. You care about competence. And the Red Tails were the most competent escorts in the war. Mission reports document crews radioing, "Where are the Red Tails?" Controllers reassigning the 332nd to protect high-priority missions. Commanders specifically requesting Davis's group for the most dangerous runs. Racism met reality, and reality won. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. When these men came home from missions, they returned to segregation. On base, in America, everywhere. Let me paint you the picture. You fly a combat mission, get shot at by the Luftwaffe, watch friends die, land back at base, and you can't use the same officers' club as white pilots, can't eat in the same mess hall, can't use the same bathrooms, on base, in uniform, with the same rank, after flying the same missions. You just risk your life for America, and America tells you you're not good enough to drink from the same water fountain. That was reality for the Tuskegee Airmen. Every single day, they fought Nazis in the air and fought racism on the ground. And somehow they maintained discipline, maintained excellence, never gave anyone an excuse to say they didn't belong. April 1945, Freeman Field, Indiana. The 477th Bombardment Group, another black unit, was stationed there. White officers had designated the officers' club as supervisory personnel only, which conveniently meant whites only. On April 5th, over 100 black officers entered the club, demanded service, were arrested, court-martialed for disobeying orders. It became known as the Freeman Field Mutiny. These men had been training to fly bombers over Japan, and they got arrested for trying to have a drink in their own officers' club. Think about that. You're willing to die for your country, but your country won't let you have a beer. The charges were eventually dropped, but the message was clear. Excellence wasn't enough. Combat record wasn't enough. You could be the best pilot in the Air Force, and you'd still be treated as less than human because of your skin color. Share this video right now. Send it to someone. Post it somewhere. These stories matter. These men deserve recognition, and the only way that happens is if people like you spread these stories. Hit that share button. Keep this history alive. Now let me tell you about their finest hour. March 24th, 1945, the mission I opened with, Berlin. The longest escort mission the 15th Air Force ever flew. 1,600 miles round trip, maximum range for a P-51 Mustang, no room for error, no fuel for extended combat. If you got in a dogfight, you might not make it home. And waiting over Berlin were the Me-262 jets. The Red Tails knew the stakes. This was the mission that would define them. Berlin was symbolic, the heart of Nazi Germany, Hitler's capital, and American bombers were going to drop their payloads right on top of it. But only if the escorts did their job. The formation reached Berlin at noon. Flak was intense. Me-262s appeared, fast, deadly, diving through the bomber formations. The Red Tails responded perfectly. Captain Roscoe Brown shot down the first Me-262. I told you that part, but what I didn't tell you was what happened next. His wingman, Lieutenant Irvin Lawrence, got another jet 10 minutes later, and Lieutenant Charles Brantley damaged a third. 3 Me-262 kills in one mission. The fastest combat aircraft in the world, shot down by pilots everyone said couldn't fly. The bombers completed their run, dropped their ordnance, turned for home. Every single bomber made it back. Not one lost to enemy fighters. The Red Tails had just pulled off the most impressive escort mission of World War II over the most heavily defended target in Germany against the most advanced fighters the Luftwaffe had, and they didn't lose a single bomber. The 332nd Fighter Group finished the war with an outstanding record. 15,500 combat sorties, 111 aerial victories, 150 destroyed on the ground. Bomber escort record unmatched by any other group. 96 distinguished flying crosses, 14 Bronze Stars, 744 air medals, 1 Silver Star, and a Presidential Unit citation. The citation read, "By the outstanding courage and skill of its pilots, the 332nd Fighter Group earned an enviable combat record. The group displayed outstanding determination and aggressive spirit in combat with the enemy." But here's the tragedy. When these men came home, most Americans didn't know they existed. The story was suppressed, minimized, buried. Because acknowledging their excellence meant acknowledging that racism was a lie, that the War Department's study was garbage, that segregation was built on false premises. So the story was forgotten, on purpose. These men came home as heroes and found they still couldn't vote in the South, couldn't eat in white restaurants, couldn't stay in white hotels. Pilots who'd flown combat over Berlin were refused service at gas stations in Alabama. Men with distinguished flying crosses were forced to sit in the back of buses. The irony was crushing. They'd fought to free Europe from tyranny, and returned to find tyranny alive and well at home. Some gave up, left aviation, tried to forget. Others kept fighting, used their GI Bill benefits to get educations, became doctors, lawyers, businessmen, fought for civil rights, proved over and over that excellence has no color. But it took decades. decades before their story was told properly, decades before America acknowledged what they'd accomplished. In 2007, President George W. Bush awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to the Tuskegee Airmen, the highest civilian honor. About 300 surviving members attended the ceremony in the Capitol Rotunda, men in their 80s and 90s, wearing their medals, standing straight, proud. Bush said, "What you did in battle is inspirational, but what you endured on the ground is also part of your legacy." Finally, recognition. Not just for combat, but for enduring racism while achieving excellence. In 2012, the Tuskegee Airmen were honored at the dedication of a memorial in the Pentagon. In 2021, Charles McGee, one of the last surviving members, was promoted to Brigadier General at age 100. The recognition came late, too late for most of them, but it came. Today, you can see restored P-51 Mustangs painted with red tails flying at air shows across America. The Commemorative Air Force maintains several, flying museums, living history. Kids watching these aircraft are learning a story that almost got erased, about men who proved that courage has no color, that excellence transcends prejudice, that when you give people opportunity, they rise. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just fight Nazis. They fought something more insidious, an ideology, a belief system, a lie that said some people were inherently inferior, and they destroyed that lie, not with words, with performance, with results that couldn't be argued against. They didn't ask to be pioneers. They just wanted to fly, to serve, to prove themselves. And in doing so, they changed America. Here's what I want you to remember from this story. Not just that they were great pilots, that's obvious. Remember that they were great despite everything working against them. Despite training facilities designed to make them fail. Despite commanders who wanted them to wash out. Despite a military that didn't want them. Despite a country that didn't believe in them. They succeeded anyway. And that's the real lesson. Excellence finds a way. When you deny people opportunity, you don't prove they're incapable. You prove you're afraid of what they'll accomplish when given the chance. The Tuskegee Airmen got their chance, and they became legends. Do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button. Second, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what this story means to you. Third, share this video. These men deserve to be remembered. Their story deserves to be told. And you can help make that happen. Hit those buttons. Keep this history alive. Today, the U.S. Air Force is 21% non-white. There are black generals, Latino colonels, Asian fighter pilots, female squadron commanders. None of that happens without the Tuskegee Airmen. They didn't just open doors. They kicked them down, proved that the only qualification for excellence is opportunity and determination. Every pilot of color who serves today stands on the shoulders of men who flew with red tails, men who were told they couldn't fly and responded by becoming the best fighter pilots in World War II. That's the legacy. That's what matters. Not just that they won battles, that they won the argument, proved the lie wrong, changed history. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. We share forgotten stories every single day. Stories about courage, about sacrifice, about people who changed the world. Don't miss them. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. The Tuskegee Airmen never lost a bomber, and we're never going to let their story be lost either. Never forget.